Up with a couple of questions, and if you have a question, raise your hand nice and high, and I'll do my best to repeat the question so everyone can hear. Okay, please help me welcome back to the stage the director of Hotline, Tony Schaap.
I actually would like to bring up some people here with me today. Bryce Reniger and Lauren Belfer are the producers that worked on the film with me from the very beginning. Very essential to making the film. The hugest round of applause to actually get this film made, so it's amazing. I'd also like to bring up a very special guest, Miss Cleo herself.
Woo! Oh my God.
Is it more?
Yeah.
So my first question is for you. Could you tell us about the process of gathering all of these subjects together and how you got them to be so open with you?
Yeah, well, you know, it took a long time to find these different people. I wanted to try to keep a really diverse group of hotlines so that we could really see what the similarities were between the phone sex operator or that one-man prayer hotline in Pennsylvania. So it took some time, and as we would interview one person, it would trigger another thought of like, oh, it'd be really great to find someone who would be able to talk to me about working with kids. And then we come across the homework hotline in Nashville, you know. So it was a pretty long casting process, but I have to say, I worked as a telephone psychic right out of college. And I worked for Miss Cleo's Psychic Readers Network. So I was seeing her commercial, and it's saying call. When they called her now, they're actually calling me. So it inspired the film quite a bit. So I knew when I started to make the film that I needed to include Miss Cleo in the film. And she so graciously accepted. But also, after working on the psychic hotline, I worked on a suicide prevention hotline for 2 years. So that's really where I brought a little bit more of these more diverse hotlines to it, I suppose. And the second part of the question, I guess, was how do you get them to open up? And I think it is just, these people are so used to being on the receiving end of the phone calls, having the opportunity to actually speak and talk about all that they've been through over the years. I feel like they're wanting to open up and share their stories, you know. So.
Questions from the audience? In the back?
I'm fascinated by Jeff and wondering, is he still doing this work? And how did he support himself? It seemed like he was doing this.
Right.
The question is in regards to the lonely guy, Jeff.
I'm actually going to hand the most recent person to speak to Jeff was Lauren, so I'll let her give an update here.
Jeff is still doing great. If you took notes during the film, the phone number that he has on the flyers is still valid. It's still just his everyday cell phone number. So you can all leave the theater today and give him a ring. He takes breaks sometimes where he's not, making as much of an effort to answer the phone to the strangers so much, but he always seems to be drawn back into it. He actually wrote a book about his experiences that includes some transcripts of some of the text conversations that he mentioned. I think it's called Jeff One Lonely Guy. You can find it on Amazon. But yeah, he's doing it. And Stephanie, the caller, is actually from Canada. And he actually spent some time up here with her after their visit in New York. And they made a little bit of a documentary about her, sort of inspired by his experience with us as a filmmaking team. So, yeah.
Another question? In the middle?
You had a bunch of interludes where you were playing audio from different calls of people who were going through some tough things. How did you get those? Are those real?
So the question is about the clips of audio. Are those real?
Well, they're absolutely real. They're real people that I spoke with. And what I ended up doing was looking in chat rooms and looking for people who had called hotlines. And I actually just did a telephone interview with people. And what happened is it became much more like a hotline call than I ever expected. So these callers I spoke with, I knew I wanted to use that audio, that material to sort of hopefully give you all a sense of what it's like to be an operator on the other end, listening in and also I wanted to keep the anonymity of the caller, because that's so important in all of this, is keeping the anonymity and not necessarily confidentiality, but the people wanted to share their stories and they were fine, sharing it with the world actually. It's just a matter of doing this interview with them, and then it turned into us just having a conversation, just like many of the hotline calls that I had, But yeah, I appreciate that question. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, but I have to disagree with you respectfully, no doubt, and I'll tell you how. I'll repeat the question. I never do this part right. I always get told to repeat the question. You do it. That's your job.
So the question is in regards to the difference between what Miss Cleo does with the hotline, where she's offering an opinion, offering judgment. So what is your opinion?
My opinion is I don't offer judgment, and I'll give you an example of how, in my private practice, I have a husband, a wife, and the mister, not the mistress. All three of them are clients. I don't have time to judge. That's not my job. My job is to talk to you about what you're feeling, talk to you about what I see, what you're doing in life, sweetheart. That job belongs to God, the universe, everyone else. I don't do that. And that's why my clients do come to me, and they stay with me for 10 and 15 years, because no matter what they do, I don't judge them.
So the question is, are there any hotlines that you wanted to include in the film but didn't make the cut?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is the Butterball Turkey Hotline. It's this hotline that opens up 1 week out of the year during Thanksgiving in the U.S., and it's for people if they have troubles with their turkeys while they're cooking. They can call and get some support. They have these domestic engineers that answer calls, and I thought it'd be just really interesting to find out what are these calls like that they're getting. Maybe it is a moment of crisis for someone who's cooking a turkey for the first time for their in-laws. So I thought it'd be interesting, but I wasn't able to get that one. But some of the bigger prayer hotlines were also an issue for us. It was nice to find a Jeff of the prayer lines working in his little town of Finleyville, though. So because we didn't get that, it led us to him, and I think that we were happy with some of these accidents that happened. So. But yeah, there's hotlines, and there's not. I'm not going to say there's not going to be a hotline 2, but there's probably not going to be a hotline 2. So.
Another question?
We're really blind.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I did this last night actually, and I did 2 different polls. But we can't really see, but you'll be able to tell us better. But is there anyone here who has ever worked on a hotline or volunteered? Yeah. Do we have? Oh, that's awesome. And now that you all have seen the film, how many of you ever called a hotline? I know when I was a kid, I called the Nintendo Power Hotline. I've called 911, and I've called quite a few hotlines. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. So, thanks for that question. It's good for us to also know who's coming to see this. So, yeah.
So we have time for a couple more questions. Any more burning questions? Yes?
I seem to misunderstand or not understand what the nature of Cleo's lawsuit about.
What part would you like me to clarify, darling? I appreciate the question. Trust me, I do.
So the question is in regards to the details of the lawsuit.
All right. For the longest time, and I try and keep it short and sweet and to the point, I talk a lot. The company that I worked for. I was under contract as a spokesperson. But I became the face of the company. They were sued by, oh, I don't know, 15 states in the United States, as well as the FTC, which is a branch of the federal government. But every time they talked about the lawsuit, they never showed the actual owners of the company. They showed me. And so people are running around saying Miss Cleo is a thief, Miss Cleo is a liar, Miss Cleo's in jail, Miss Cleo had to pay $356 million over here. And I'm sitting at home saying, what the blood clot is going on? I don't know about this. And so, unfortunately, because we live in a space and time where people have only time to listen to a 15-second soundbite, I became this villain. And that's not the way it happened. And I am a mother, I have family, I'm not an enigma. And so it took a long time to get past that. And these three amazing individuals gave me an opportunity, well after a decade when all was said and done, to heal and to speak my truth that nobody was ever really interested in. Clearly, they want to put me in a box and leave me there. And after a while, you get tired, you know? You get tired of fighting a fight that nobody's interested in paying attention to. The company, the owners of the company were arrested by the state of Missouri. And this is what money does for you. They were arrested 9 o'clock in the morning. They flew from Florida to Missouri, arrested at 9 o'clock in the morning. They had a U.S. attorney, former U.S. attorney, represent them, Attorney Dowd. For those of you who are old enough, you'll recognize that name. Went in, booked them, took their pictures, posted bail, got an arraignment, and they were back in Fort Lauderdale for dinner at 6 p.m.
We have time for one more question. Any burning questions? Raise your hand nice and high. In the back?
Based on your own experience and everyone that you encountered collectively, I'd love to hear from all of y'all where you think the future of this is going to go with our changing technology and potentially where else it could go.
So if all of you could offer us your opinion on how hotlines will be in the future with the evolution of technology.
Yeah, I think we all have different answers to this, actually. I think my favorite answer to that question is Jamie's in the film, where he talks about how in his case, him looking at psych health, looking at mental health, he's noticed why people call, and people call when they're in crisis more. They don't have the opportunity to call when they're just working things out. And so those kinds of changes are interesting to me, and I really appreciated that he shared that with us, that social services are such that the calls that he gets are so much more extreme now.
I think that Jeffs of the world are maybe in some ways, I've seen them popping up in the future a little bit more than that, you know. I think that the pastor definitely noticing that there's an immediate need for his small town and just being like, I'm the one guy who's going to do it. But I can see that popping up a lot more actually, just a little bit less of the huge real estate call center situation, but just sort of being able to pop up a little website, a flyer here or there, you know, I'm hearing.
Technology is an interesting dynamic for somebody like me. But I have to admit that Skype is a fabulous thing. And I have had international clients for the whole of my practice. And now they get to see me because of Skype. And it's not just the voice, but they're comforted by my crazy looking face, God knows. But even for those, you know, who don't have the full-on video concept, they still can hear the voice. So I'm hoping to meet it somewhere in the middle. But hotlines, people needing to talk to people, I pray every day it doesn't go away.
I like to think that exactly that hotlines just continue on forever, and they might evolve into some other form, like chat roulette situations, or doing the one cup of tea, I think, is a site that's like 7 cups of tea where you're connecting just a temporary stranger to talk for free, basically, on the internet. So there's all those things. But I think also just hoping that this film will sort of inspire you all to be your own hotline and call someone that you love right now, or call someone who you think is lonely. You know, just get on the phone and talk to them, have a conversation. I think hopefully that will do something. You know, just that little bit. So. But I just want to thank you all for coming out and experiencing the film with us, and yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing the film.